The last one I did was for a college. They insisted on doing it over YouTube Live. But they wanted to turn off all the comments so that like people couldn't spam it because it's a Catholic college. And they're like, we don't want anybody putting anything inappropriate, so we're just going to turn them off. I'm like, okay, but then I'm literally just talking at my silent computer.
Yeah.
I'm like, can I get like a couple of students in like a G chat or something so that I can get, and they're like, we don't know how to do that. I'm like, I'll explain it. It's super easy. And I'm sure every student on your campus can figure it out. And they're like, no, we're just going to make you talk alone in your living room for an hour.
Right.
It was so bad. Like I've done Zoom shows where everybody's muted and you can at least see them. Like YouTube Live is just one way.
They're just like, we want you to feel like you're praying to nobody.
Yeah, like we're gonna make this as uncomfortable for you as possible.
Yeah, it's such a weird time, and that's why we started this podcast like just before the pandemic. So it was good timing.
Yeah, gives you something to do. I've been doing mine. We didn't for a while, just because we didn't feel like it is basically the reason. The premise of the show is we're rewriting all of Wikipedia without doing any research. So we'll get like a different topic from a guest, and then my co-host and I just spit out every fact we know and then make up what we don't. And it's fun. But then when like you're severely depressed and worried that you're going to die in a pandemic, you're like, I don't know if I want to talk about the fake history of ice skates or whatever. Yeah. So we took a bit off and then came back.
Yeah, it's a fun concept, but you got to. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. You got to be in the right frame of mind. Yeah,
and I have 2 kids, and my wife is a librarian. She's been working the whole time, a lot of it from home, but they're open up now for like, it's like make an appointment, I think, to go to the library because they can only have so many people in the building. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So I don't know. How do you work from home and be a librarian at the same time?
I know some of it they were doing like different videos, and people can still get materials online. So they were helping them do that and answering. She works the reference desk a lot where people just have questions about whatever. Like before Google was around, people would ask librarians just anything, and they had to be able to find it. So she does that a fair amount.
Okay. Smartest people on earth, or at least they most organized people on earth.
Yeah. She can certainly find anything.
Yeah.
Like if she doesn't actually know it, she knows where to look. The highest level at Kickstarter was you could get your face on the cover of Jerk the magazine, and I would interview you for a feature story. And I didn't think anybody would take me up on it because it was $500. 2 people did. And the one woman is very excited about it. I have her interview coming up. And then the other guy's like, no thanks. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, no, I don't want to be on the cover. I'm like, all right, well, here's all the other rewards. Like you get a t-shirt and I'll send somebody a postcard and you get a subscription to the magazine. He's like, nah, I don't want them. You gave me $500 for seemingly no reason. My favorite person in the world right now.
All right. Yeah. Cool.
Definitely not a jerk.
Yeah, I'm just gonna he owns a comic book store. I'm like, I'm just gonna send like 50 copies of the magazine to his store.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to do to thank him.
He gets his own magazine. It's called Nice.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't qualify. You're too good for this.
Yeah.
You're too pure for this world, sir.
$500 to do nothing. Thanks. Thank you. You're a hero.
My parents didn't even do that. They're like, we'll kick in, but we want a t-shirt at least.
Yeah, sorry. I have a new dad now.
Yeah, he owns a comic book store. He seems great.
The best dad.
Yeah.
I remember when I was starting out and I would do shows with like headliners who were just guys who'd been doing the road for 40 years. Like they're not famous. They've been doing the same act for the past 2 decades. Like, and they would just be so grumpy about it.
Yep.
And you're like, why do this then? Like,
that's all I got.
Yeah. Like especially at the time, I'm like, God, if we're on the same show, I know you're not getting paid a lot. Like, and they would just complain about the venue. And I'm like, you don't have to do this, right? Like, you know, you can just be an accountant or whatever. Which is another thing I talk about when I've taught stand up. I'm like, guys, it's not like, it's fun to do, but like the job part of it is not necessarily that enjoyable. So if you really don't feel like you have to do this, it's probably not worth it. Or you can just, it's fine if it's just a hobby. If you just want to go to like your local open mic every couple of weeks and tell some jokes, that's fine. I feel like the open mic comics who are trying to take it seriously will like really dump on like the guy who brings his work friends and like kills because he knows everybody in the room because they're all drunk. And I'm like, I don't know, he has every right to be there. Like,
right.
Let him have this.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus, like, I don't know what you think is going to happen in this bar basement that's going to like make you pop off as the world's greatest comedian, but you know, share.
Right. Well, and also I can't knock that person. When I first started, I brought my friends, you know, and also there's an audience.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember I started doing bringers in New York and would bring a lot of people, and because I hadn't burned through all my friends yet. Like, when I started doing open mics, I didn't tell anybody. I didn't even tell my wife. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go meet my friend for drinks. And I did it. And we went to see him perform at the open mic 2 weeks before that. And then he was trying to get me to go up. But I had done that one show, that one open mic at Caroline's in college where I bombed because I didn't prepare at all. I'm like, well, I do want to do it, but like, I'll come back in 2 weeks. I'll write some jokes. And then I went back and I'm like, well, I don't want my wife to see me do comedy the first time. Like, that's if it goes bad, like I still have to live with that lady forever. So and the first time it went pretty okay, and after a couple of months where I'm like, all right, I'm not saying I'm incredible, but like I'm not embarrassed to be doing that. And then when I started doing bringers in New York, like I would bring a ton of people. The one show, other comics were pissed because their people couldn't get in because I had brought something like, it was at New York Comedy Club, and I almost filled it, like just from people there to see me. And other comics were like, what the hell, man? I'm like, they told me to bring people. I don't know. I've been doing comedy for like 6 months at that point. I'm like, they said bring people, and I did. I don't know.
As many as I could.
Can't help you. Yeah. I'm like, It was Clayton Fletcher's show too. So I don't recommend bringers at all because there's a terrible system that prey on comedians, except for Clayton Fletcher's. Because if you bring more than, I think, 3 people, it might change depending on the specific show. If you bring more than 3 people, I think he pays you $5 a head because he's a comedy producer, but he's a comedian first, and he's funny and a good person. So he's like, I need to tell you to bring people so that there's actually people at this show. But it's like, I'm not going to scam you. Like,
yeah,
it's those ones I always recommend.
Yeah,
he's nice.
I
wouldn't recommend them right now because of the pandemic.
Yeah, I just connected. Yeah, right. I just connected with him though, because the company that he works with does stand-up comedy training, and I just had a sit-down interview with the CEO of that company, and he put me in touch with Clayton. So we're gonna have a chat in the next week or two.
Oh, nice.
So,
yeah, he was one of the first people to get me on stage in New York.
Cool.
11 years ago. So.
Cool. I'll name drop you then if that's cool.
Yeah, he's tremendous. I'll get questions about doing bringers and stuff from newer comics that I know. I'm like, yeah, don't. And then they'll be like, oh, well, the guy said he knew you. I'm like, oh, is it Clayton Fletcher? And they're like, yeah. Oh, then do that one. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, do his. Right. One of the local clubs down in Akron, they do like a comedy contest, and it's a bringer contest. And usually the person who brings the most people is no matter how bad they are, they're getting to the finals.
Those are terrible. I did one of Clayton's shows. He did a competition that I won, that I still to this day don't think I should have won.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it on the podcast, but the second place finisher wrote for SNL. I think she's on Fallon now. She's gone on to be much more successful at comedy than me. I'm like, she had a better set. Like she's just a funnier person than me. I don't know. And I was vague tweeting about it a couple months ago. And Clayton, I didn't call him out by name. He's like, no, I was there. You won. I'm like, oh, all right. Like I didn't want to tag him and be like, this guy said I won, but he's a dumb idiot who doesn't know anything. He remembered it well enough that he figured out I was talking about him in that specific show. And he was very reassuring that he thought I should have won. I'm like, I don't know, man. She's really good.
Hey, at least you're not a narcissist about it. You know? What? I said, at least you're not a narcissist about it. You're like, she won. That's like, that means that, that's a really rare,
yeah.
Well, not
they
rare.
They were just doing it by applause, and they had to do it a couple of times. It's literally me and her standing on stage, Clayton holding her hands and like raising them up, and then the audience would clap, and then he would raise her hand and they would clap, and it sounded like a little bit louder. And then it was like, no, I think it was Glenn. I'm like, you're wrong. Just by how well she did and audience applause, she should have won. But yeah. I did. So take that.
All right.
She didn't need that win. I did.
Dude, contests are the worst. I mean, I don't do them anymore.
9 times out of 10, they're set up wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did one on Staten Island that was insane because it went on for months. Like there were a lot of rounds. Mm-hmm. And the same thing. They're like, bring people out so they vote for you. And I have family on Staten Island. So I'm like, I can get people in that room pretty easy. I made it to the finals and I lost to June Chung. I'll name him. He's also he writes I forget what show he's on at Nicola. He writes for children's TV. He's very funny. We just did the last show I did before the pandemic was with him, and he won because he's from Staten Island and brought like 50 people, and Pete Davidson hosted the show for the final, and he was I think 17 at the time, stoned out of his mind, and the guys who produced the show were like telling us what a big deal it was that he was hosting it, but none of us had ever seen him or heard of him. Like, the stoned kid, you mean?
Yeah.
And then he got SNL, I think like 2 or 3 years later. I think he was like 19 or 20, right?
He's young.
One of the youngest people. He got it a couple years later and was like, that guy? And then, yeah, I don't know. He's pretty funny. I'm not trying to put him down. It's just, he was so stoned that night that I was surprised that he was upright. It's fun for me because then it'll give me things to talk about. Like I don't remember if I mentioned it on my first album, but I talk about that we named my older daughter after Amelia Pond from Doctor Who. Because I do a joke about how we didn't, in the joke I say that we named her Tess because then her name would be Testicle. And it's the dumbest joke. But sometimes I will say, no, we named her after a Doctor Who character. That's just how nerds name their kids. And since I perform a lot at colleges, like I'll have students come up and be like, what did you name your daughter? Like, which character? And like, they want to talk about it. And it's, it gives me something to talk to them about other than me, which is uncomfortable sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. You're just up on stage for an hour talking about yourself and your own. Yeah. Nice to bring up other people. When we lose somebody that's close to us, there's a resistance to laugh. There's a resistance, not even in loss, but just in like, say we fall short of a goal or we don't get something that we want or we lose a comedy contest, like that taking it too seriously. Like, where do you think that comes from? Do you think that's like a societal construct, or do you think it's like more of a biological, like evolutionary, like I don't want to lose, like I want to be the top of the gene pool or whatever?
I don't know that I have a very good answer. Did you play sports, either of you?
I played baseball up until freshman in high school, and then I decided theater.
I did, just all random, all over the place, but
I never did. And the same therapist that I had the chairs conversation with, she told me that as a kid, I never learned to compete in a healthy way. So like if I lose something, like I hate it. Or even like my friend who I co-host my podcast with isn't doing it this year, but the last, I think, 3 years has hosted a game show that combines Christmas with the movie Seven. And it's incredibly dumb, means absolutely nothing, but I've competed in it twice. And if I'm not winning, like both times, he's like, the points in the game where you're behind, you like seem so genuinely upset. I'm like, I am. I want to win the thing. He's like, it doesn't matter. You know that, right? I'm like, I want to win it. We did Comedy Jeopardy at a festival I did 2 years ago. And it was, the show was set up to where it was supposed to be fun for the audience, but also like I watch Jeopardy a lot and I take trivia stuff too seriously. So I'm like, I'm here to win. I'm not making joke answers. I'm going to figure out the way. There was like real trivia and then like weird dumb joke questions, but they had an answer. I'm like, I'm going to figure this out and I'm going to win Joke Jeopardy. And I did. And same thing. It doesn't mean anything. No one's like, are you the guy who won Joke Jeopardy? Or are you the guy who arguably ruined that show for the audience by making it not fun because you were trying so hard to win? So I don't know if that's like a common thing for comedians. I know a couple like jock comics who were like big into sports in high school and even in college who do comedy now. But I feel like the majority of comedians weren't like high school football stars or whatever.
No, for sure.
So I'm wondering if maybe that's why, because like none of us really learned how to compete in a healthy way.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead, Steve.
It's the thing about a sense of accomplishment and all these things. Like, I don't think former football stars crave attention. We're lucky that kids aren't really dying the way that elderly are. So it's very reassuring to be able to tell kids like, you know, if anything, you're okay. I mean, out of all people.
Right. Like my other daughter's 2, so she just doesn't understand anything. But my 7-year-old, you know, she's a smart kid. Like she understands things, but she also misses her friends because she's been doing school remotely since April, I think.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, that's that human element, but we're finding new ways to connect. It's not the same, but you know, we still got to find those ways to get that oxytocin and that serotonin.
Yeah.
You can't laugh at that.
Special thanks to Golden Ox Studio. You can find Golden Ox Studio for all your podcasting needs at goldenoxstudio.com. Hit up Jeremy. He is fantastic to work with, a professional. He makes podcasting easy. And if you've been kicking the tires on starting your own podcast, definitely give Golden Ox Studio a look.
If you'd like to weigh in on today's topic, follow us on Twitter at YouCan'tLaughPod, or like us on Facebook at You Can't Laugh at That, and tell us how you did laugh at today's topic or how you didn't. This is all about the conversation, is what I'm saying. All right. Bye.